Another Patreon recommendation with which Punch-Out boxer is the biggest cheater? Bumbles McFumbles. By, of course, Bumbles McFumbles. Now, I've heard this creator recommended a number of times. Personally, I've never seen any of their work. I've also never really played Punch-Out. I'm trying to remember, I think, was it Mike Tyson himself ends up being one of the biggest cheaters, quote unquote, or at least one of the biggest things that the game throws at you. Hence why we're here to find out. This is going to be a learning experience. This is the Wii
Punch-Out is one of Nintendo's longest tenured franchises, using boxing as a template for what essentially boils down to a puzzle game but with punches. As all good puzzles should have to put those Poindexters on our level. Of course, Punch-Out isn't something you should take very seriously since you're going up against magical teleporting Indian men, guys wielding staves in the ring, and someone who thinks it's okay to kick in a boxing match. However, all these guys raise a very valid question. How exactly does the governing body of Punch-Out's boxing world define its rule set? The only way these flagrant fouls would be allowed is if there was literally no rule set whatsoever. If this is somehow not grounds for at least a point reduction, you're gonna get someone with a knife in their gloves sooner rather than later.
Right.
So, I wanted to see exactly which Punch-Out boxers are breaking which rules of the sweet science. For this, I'll be looking at specifically Punch-Out's Wii reboot from 2009, since not only is it the best looking, it's the most detailed, and will allow us to see what exactly these racist caricatures are doing to one-up the player.
I'm trying to remember. I know I was reading a Game Informer talking about, way back in the day, talking about, now I feel old, talking about before Punch-Out Wii came out, and I thought they censored something or they got rid of something. I don't remember what it was, though. Maybe it was... No, I think King Hippo was still in the game, right?
Speaking of the player, however, Little Mac is probably the best place to start. Given the fact he's your everyman from the Bronx, it's safe to assume that Mac is a pretty standard boxer, and you'd be right. From his attire, to his stance, to how he conducts himself in the corner, Mac is following almost every rule in the Unified Rules of Boxing as established by the Association of Boxing Commissions and Combat Sports. There are a lot of unseens that we can assume are followed, like proper fist wrapping, a clean checkup during the weigh-in, and no illegal substances.
Sure.
Although getting back health from Doc eating a chocolate bar is up for debate. However, it's not a perfect record. See, Mac is actually breaking one of the most paramount rules in all of boxing. He's only 17. These fully grown men are unleashing bear hugs, Hondo rushes, and Dreamland Expresses on someone not even old enough to drink to numb the pain. This would automatically disallow Mac to compete at such a high level of competition and would need him to take another year before professionally fighting. But maybe the WVBA allows him to compete for being a prodigy on Doc Lewis's recommendation? Either way, despite having the fundamentals down, Mac is just not ready. Some other admin I feel I should address is some of the rules of boxing that would automatically disallow these fights from happening. First is weight classes. Mac is 107 pounds, putting him in the light flyweight division. The very first opponent he fights, Glass Joe, is 110 pounds, putting him in the flyweight division. If Mac wants to fight outside his weight class, he's going to need to at least reach the minimum weight for the class he wants to fight in. So he's bulking up to at least 108 pounds. How will he ever manage that? He could stand on his scale a little weirdly. But then you have Bear Hugger, who weighs in at over 400 pounds. That's a weight class so far ahead of Mac's own that it doesn't even exist. He's just heavyweight.
Wasn't that the... I'm trying to remember. Wasn't there concessions? This was... I don't think this was on boxing, right? But this was... Was it whatever the whole Mike Tyson, Logan Paul, whatever the heck that was, right? I remember everyone being hyped for it, and then it happened. And did it turn into another Logan Paul KSI thing? Like, I don't remember. Like, it kind of happened, and then, like, I guess nothing happened. I remember people talking about how they were going to buy tickets to that to watch Logan. No, it wasn't Logan Paul. It was Jake Paul, right? Whatever, one of the Paul brothers. I don't keep up, dude. I don't keep up with them. There was that whole situation was rigged. I mean, I'll have to put an allegedly there, but like, you can do cross division. It's possible. So like in what I do, like whenever I go out to SCA and stuff like that, right? To be fair, like, yeah, we fight in different formats, right? Like you have, you know, your heavy, which is, you know, full armor, you know, stuff like that. But like or rapier where you have, you know, like gambesons on or fencing coats and cloaks and stuff like that, right? Like you have your different like styles, but that's because they're so fundamentally different that's kind of required. But I mean, like, if Homeboy shows up and he's 400 pounds with a, long sword that is maybe it's like, something like, I don't know, say 50 inches, let's say, hypothetically, 50-inch blade, right? Blade alone. And it's legal for the format? Yeah, I mean, I'm fighting that dude in rapier, regardless of his size, okay? You get, you get the Glass Joe equivalent with 2 daggers that are legal for rapier, like they have enough bend, right? You know how, like, swords will bend? Not quite to the extreme that foils do, right? But if you put a fishing weight on the end of it, right, which is literally how we test the flex, right? You put a fishing weight on it, and it has to bend so much, right? Like... yeah, it's legal. Grats, I can fight somebody who's 80 pounds. I could fight somebody who's 450 pounds. So I get why when you go into sports like this, there's reasons for this. I understand that there would be genuine reasons to have divisions and separate weights and stuff. But, like, I think it's part of the sports bureaucracy of why I can't enjoy, like, American football or baseball or, MMA or wrestling or boxing, because there's so much bureaucracy that goes into it. I want to show up, understand that everybody has the same qualification that I do. And grats, we're going to go swing swords. We're going to go dodge spears. I'm going to go hit people with shields, and we're going to have fun, right? That's where I'm at. And that's actually why I don't really cover or deal with a lot of sports, because a lot of this is just so foreign to me.
Clearly, the WBBA isn't concerned with weight classes and will book freak show fights, which is all well and good for basically everybody except Little Mac. At his weight, it's very likely, unless he plays the most defensive and evasive style ever devised, he will be killed in the ring. Weight classes exist for a reason, and with Little Mac's pitiful reach, he'd never so much as be able to land a hit on anyone. So, yeah, Mac would realistically never be able to go up against even Disco Kid, who's as far from Mac on the weight chart as possible as heavyweight. But let's say, for the sake of this video being made, that Mac could get into the ring. Which of his opponents is breaking the most rules? First up is...
Before we get into that, I also want to offer a clarification. Look, if you enjoy wrestling, MMA, American football, whatever, right? If you enjoy your sports, right? This shouldn't be taken as disparaging it and saying it's trash. Because, the internet will assume, I don't immediately sign off on this thing being super legit, therefore I must hate it. No, I prefer actual combat, right? I prefer doing things like SCA. I would do ACL. I would do a number of things, right? Scalagrims and HEMA, right? I would do it. But, like, I mean, that comes with all the safety, that comes with all the understanding, all the education, even how to swing things, Path of the Blade. I guess that's technically philosophy from Musashi. But, like, that's just my preference, right? And I'm sure there are many qualified people out there that could be like this, while it makes sense for what you do, it does make sense for somebody who's, 208 pounds to not go up against somebody who's 400 pounds, to not go against somebody who's, little max weight, right? Like, and provide the valid reasons for that, right? Or even to cite the actual tournament documents, right? Like, as much as I look at it and go, this is a little too much bureaucracy for my taste, right? Like, I'm sure there's valid reasons, and you shouldn't take this as me saying your sport of choice is trash, because that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm merely stating where my bias is.
Glass Joe, D- in human form. This poor son of a gun is 99 in the hole with only a single win to his name. Granted, that win is against Nick Bruiser, former world heavyweight champion, so he's probably still riding that buzz. All the way down to the mat. Everything about Joe is frankly up to par. His gloves, trunks, boots, corner behavior is all up to snuff. However, where we do have to mark an infraction is in his title defense match. Exclusive to Punch-Out Wii is title defense mode, where you go up against the same 13 boxers from the base game with enhanced movesets to make them championship material.
Right.
What does Glass Joe get? A pillow tied to his head. In his intro cutscene after his 100th loss, it's shown that his doctor is so scared for his safety that he won't let him compete without headgear. Now this is a very big infraction, possibly the biggest that you could get. Headpieces in boxing are strictly forbidden, as you're cushioning one of the most easily punchable parts of the body. The only way that headgear is allowed is if both boxers get it. But Little Mac doesn't. If Joe's taking reduced damage from headshots, he has an unfair advantage.
Sure. I mean, once again, to be fair, like, so here's the thing. Someone mentioned literally in chat, right? You have to duel this man with a spear with nothing but a single dagger. Sure. As I responded, it would suck. I'd do it, though. But, like, so I'm of two minds here, right? So I I simultaneously agree with what he's saying. What he says makes sense, right? And you would hear me say the exact same thing about the concept of genning in Pokemon offering an unfair advantage. You would hear me saying certain things in regards to, wall hacks, aimbots, etc., in FPS games like Call of Duty offering an unfair advantage, right? And those are like cheating, but like, or if you're, in boxing, something where you are taking reduced damage to a valid hit, right? Yeah, you have an unfair advantage if your opponent does not have that, right? You have you're dagger fighting, but you have a kite shield and your opponent doesn't, right? So you have more defensive opportunities. Now, where I differ from this in philosophy is, sometimes if if you're going in with a dagger, right? Yeah, you're going in with a dagger, right? And your opponent might have a spear. Sucks. Like, you're gonna have to go against that. Sure, you can eat the loss. You can just say, no, I'm not fighting that, right? But it's like, I'm just like, sure, that's fine. At that point, I'm trying to make sure that they swing big, bait the swing. I'm able to get on the side of that spear and close the distance, right? Like, there's a number of ways which I do it. Spears, if you've never fought against them, kind of suck, if I'm being honest, because they're very fast. They have very fast, quick jabs. Think like a jab from boxing, right? Rather than doing a full, like, straight, right, which is fully extended, they'll do a lot of jabs instead with spears. And that range of motion, it's disgusting. That reach is also disgusting. But take for what I do. I use longsword in rapier, right? And you'll think like, but rapier, that the basket hilts, flimsy swords that are dex weapons, right? Yeah. So now I'm using a longsword, which is kind of mixed between strength and dex, right? Especially with cuts in rapier not necessarily being a thing in SCA, because in order for a cut to be valid, you have to land it. Like, you have to land the cut on the person, and then you have to pull your strike, right? Like you're slicing them, right? And that's a rapier format specific thing. It's different in heavy, obviously, but for all my qualifications, I'm only in rapier right now because I don't have the rest of the armor that I would need for heavy combat. And I just can't make the SCA right now just because of time conflicts. But like, point being, right? Like, I even play at a handicap, so I'm effectively doing the little Mac where the other person, has some sort of advantage against me, right? You can only be so quick with a longsword, even if you're using different angles. You're using, I think torque is the right word, using torque with how you adjust the handle, pommel out, keons down, right? Like, you're dealing with a lot of angles. You're dealing with a lot of lines when it comes to longsword. And yeah, you can thrust, absolutely, which is a staple, a hallmark of rapier format. But like, I do fight at a disadvantage because of how quick rapiers are. So my general plan of attack is to generally attack their rapier and then close the distance, which is harder than you would think in a lot of cases, especially against people who've been doing that for 30 years, right? But I mean, this circling back around, I mean, fighting at a disadvantage when it comes to actual like sports, quote unquote, to me, I mean, it's whatever. I mean, I do it consistently. But in this case, where it is very specifically a sport with regulations put in place to make it fair for everyone else, obviously, yes, protections, right? But a sport to make it as fair as possible between competitors, right? And that's why weight classes come into play, right? I totally see this being a thing. So when I say I'm of two minds, that's what I mean. That there's a lot of back and forth that I have, but like, understand why things like this are in place.
However, I'm not totally sure I can count this one. You see, in this game, if you lose 100 times, you get a headgear that you can wear during matches that will reduce damage.
Sure.
Now, I will say that if you've taken 100 KO losses in professional fights, a headgear now is about as effective as a mommy kiss on a decapitation. But it raises an interesting question. If Joe is fighting with this because he has to, does it count as an infraction? I mean, he literally can't fight without it thanks to his doctors in the WBBA, so right. Is it wrong? Yes, it is. Unless Mac is also wearing one, you can't wear headgear. Sure. Now, if Mac also loses 100 times and wears it, it's all up to Borg. Until he does, though, he's got one infraction against him. Mm-hmm. Von Kaiser comes next, and given the fact that he's shown being bullied by kids, I think Mac will do just fine. Kaiser seems totally up to Borg, just like Joe. However, it's time to bust out a rule you might not have even thought about. Kaiser's pants are actually the big problem. In boxing, it's required that you wear loose-fitting trunks that extend no further than the knees to better show off potential low blows. Kaiser is not only wearing them below his knees, he's got them tucked into his boots. That's an infraction right there, but given that you've seen his status as a boxing teacher, it's pretty safe to say that he's got no other major oversights in his boxing style.
I mean, I could see that, especially once again, to make it as fair as possible, to also make sure that it's a safety thing, right? I don't know, something. Was it harder fist wrappings, loaded gloves? I mean, what happens if you primarily hit, in those covered areas? And then obviously now the pants are covering any sort of bruises, any sort of lacerations, right? Like, I don't know. I could see this. I could absolutely see why this is a thing. And once again, right, it's much like the argument I make for Warhammer 40K, right? If I'm playing at a competitive level, right? So if I say show up to, I don't know, a tournament in Las Vegas, right? And I'm going to go play something Eldari, I better not see a single person 3D print their miniatures. Because if I'm playing in a high level tournament, right, the expectation is we all have bought and put together and painted our pieces, right? And even if you didn't construct your own pieces, even if you send it out to your buddy for a commission, or you went on eBay and bought an entire Eldari army, right? Like, at the very least, you have authentic Games Workshop pieces to play in tournaments. This is no different than going to a Magic the Gathering tournament like Friday Night Magic. Or, something, if they still even have competitive Magic, I would play competitive Modern. I'd play Tron all day. I think they went away with that, though, unfortunately. I'd have to double check. But I can't use proxies, right? I have to use an authentic Karn Liberate. I have to use an authentic Wormcoil engine. Pokemon TCG, right? I have to make sure I'm using an authentic Dragapult EX, right? I can't use proxies. I can't use anything that, is in place of it, right? At official sanctioned tournaments. Yu-Gi-Oh, right? Yes, I know people want to use their funny Dark Magician Girl Oricas. I get that. But once again, actual sanctioned play, and that's the argument here. Actual sanctioned play is different. It has rules, it has regulations, it has bylaws that you must follow to be able to compete. And that's kind of where I'm at, right? And I've gotten pushback from 40K. Once again, like, the 40K community has been a weird one to deal with. Bro, no one cares if you're kitchen tabling a Wraith Knight that you printed. No one cares if you 3D printed the Golden Girls Adeptus Custodes army to play at your local, like, whatever, like, just local get-together. No one cares. When we specifically talk about actual sanctioned events, that's what I'm talking about. So this, obviously, in-universe being a reasonably televised fight, right? These things all play into each other, and that's why we get into fractions in the first place, right? These are bylaws, regulations you must follow to compete.
Disco Kid is after him, and as I said before, this guy is massively out of Mac's league. Literally, he's double Mac's own weight. At first I thought the disco ball in his intro could count as an outside electronic, which you can't have, but upon closer inspection, it's more likely than not a part of the bombed out ghetto gym that these fights take place in. It's a professional fighting arena on Mondays and Thursdays and senior bingo on the weekends. However, you can nail him for using headphones in the corner. He could very easily be receiving outside illegal advice through those. Right. There's just no way to know. However, the biggest offense is in his title defense fight, where he forgoes the boxing shorts for a fashion-forward leotard. While fitting in with his lifestyle choice to take up boxercising, it's also bananas illegal. In boxing, you're required to have a clear line of demarcation between your trunks and your chest with the seam of your boxing shorts. It also needs to contrast as to let your opponent know where would count as a low blow. He's not even wearing pants! Disco Kid is asking for low blows and he has nobody to blame but himself. Yeah. The Disco Kid comes out swinging with a record-setting 2 infractions. Here's hoping he doesn't get immediately... Yeah, there's a lot to unpack with King Hippo.
I mean, the leotard, I mean, it depends on the it depends on what you're doing, right? I haven't seen it. Jackie Chan, Drunken Master, like, there's a reason why he wears very loose clothing. That helps kind of obfuscate his body mass, if I remember correctly. It's been a while since I've had a conversation on this. But clothing does actually matter. And in this, right, especially if you're dealing with low blows and high blows, right? Like, yeah, the actual this is how we denote what is a high blow and what isn't. I mean, totally makes sense to me.
Probably one of the most iconic boxers in the franchise, King Hippo is also lousy with rule breaks. Before the fight even starts, King Hippo's weight, height, and nationality are all unknown.
You know, where's our punch out for the Switch? Right? Because, I mean, the Wii era, Wii nunchuck motion controls, right? Like, I mean, very wary of the era, and it seemed to fit, right? Like, but we have, like, Labo. Well, I guess Labo isn't even Switch 2 compatible, if I understand that correctly. But, like, or Ring Fit as well. Ring Fit isn't, well, I guess Ring Fit isn't compatible with Switch 2. Like, we have, like, the mouse ability for, like, the Switch 2 controllers, right? Where's a very easy Especially because Nintendo just seems to be in the business of just like remaking and remastering things at this point, right? Like, where's our modern day Punch Out? I'm sure people would absolutely love that. I'm sure they'd buy it for whatever $80 or what Nintendo's charging anymore. It's from Parts Unknown. Wait, that's for. I mean, part of this is also like, right, you have to think about wrestling. Part of it is also, building an image, right? I mean, we talked about this a little bit with my Yu-Gi-Oh conversation in the recent TGS anime video. Just casual Yu-Gi-Oh anime viewer talks about the game, right? And talking about how it'd be very easy for Konami to make, make a King Hippo personality coming to an event, right? I don't know. You bring someone like, anyone, right? In who has like a YouTube presence, social media presence with Yu-Gi-Oh, right? And it's like, and now we have, I mean, obviously it wouldn't be King Hippo proper. Let's take Nova Alchemy, right? And then we have the Lady of the Labyrinth herself, Nova Alchemy, right? And then, I don't know, it has like a pan over switch to scene switch over to Nova Alchemy, saying hi to everybody, right? Like building up personalities and stuff, right? Because from what I understand of it, and I'm not really here to talk about if wrestling's fake or authentic, that's for people who really engage with it, and I'm personally not of any mind either way. But even then, I mean, it would make sense if, you're telling a story where you have personalities with names like King Hippo. The Big Show, I know, was an IRL version, if I understand that correctly, in wrestling, if I remember correctly. But like, you build that story, you build that entertainment. It's almost like what people do on YouTube, right? It's almost like a video talking about, different rules and regulation breaks and if people are cheating or not in Punch-Out is very much a way to have a through line of entertainment, introducing all these characters and making you learn about mechanics that you otherwise may or may not have done. It's just entertainment, right? Like, and it's not to be derogatory. This video is amazing. I love how this is constructed, but it does prompt the discussion of entertainment isn't necessarily bad. It just depends, it depends on a number of factors. I'm being completely honest. But it depends if it's enjoyable or not. And yes, enjoyment is subjective, but like, so many conversations. I love this. Yeah, this could very much be an in-universe, like, we don't know where we found this guy, but this could also very much be a building of the brand, right?
By that logic, it's safe to say that he did not come to the required weigh-in and hasn't gotten a proper US-sanctioned boxing license. Place of origin cannot be up to interpretation! Before a punch is even thrown, he's already broken 2 rules. Then we get to the fight, and instantly we got a violation for head covering. That funny little crown may look good in marketing, but you don't get to take it into the ring with you.
Yeah.
However, for the rest of the fight, he somehow manages to keep it clean, save for his pants falling down. But that's a more public indecency thing than a boxing thing.
Yeah.
In his title defense mode, however, we've got a bigger issue to deal with. His crown is back and actually bigger this time, but the real issue to discuss is what's going on with his stomach. He's wearing body armor! But would you believe me if I said that the covering for a man's hole isn't the only problem here?
That's a Bumbles McFumbles out of context. I love that he has a manhole sewer like cover just taped to his stomach. That is some amazing duct tape.
Only in minor circuit fights are you allowed to have tape on your body. That's why the big X over his tummy is legal. In a world championship fight, you can't have tape on your person. So taping the manhole covering is a whole new rule break. King Hippo manages to break 5 different rules in his fights and puts him well ahead of the rest of the pack. Moving on to the major circuit.
It's okay, he's King Hippo. He just does King Hippo things.
Now Piston Hondo is up, and with him we get the most up-to-bar boxer thus far. Literally the only thing you can get him on is his headband. That's because it's a head covering and it might allow punches to slide off easier. Other than that, Hondo's playing the exact same game you are.
Yeah.
This is even a problem exclusive to the Wii version, because in the original he fights without a headband. Sadly though, he's been barred from competition for the most heinous crime that a boxer, nay, a human can commit. Pirating manga.
No! No! I actually didn't even hear about this. That's wild. I don't know. I don't really feel for Nintendo right now. I honestly, like, their brand kind of took a nosedive, being very litigious against their community, only to just say, nah, we're actually not going to be litigious. That one really kind of destroyed their brand identity for me, if I'm being honest. Very much not a fan of current Nintendo for not engaging in legality when it matters against alleged unauthorized use of their IP. And I have to say alleged because clearly there would be legal action if there was actual unauthorized use of their IP, which we have plenty of precedent for from the actual Nintendo community, right? So that's why I say alleged misuse or alleged unauthorized use of their IP.
After him is Bear Hugger, and given the fact the game was made by a Canadian studio, you'd think they make this rep one of the more noble ones. There's a lot to unpack with Bear Hugger.
Legend.
First is his attire. Just like Von Kaiser, you gotta be showing off those knees. Also, like Disco, there's no distinct line between his upper and lower body. Not to mention, in title defense, he's got a head covering too in the form of his hat. Now let's get on to the wholly unique infractions.
Yeah, I definitely see why. I think it's why like Mobile Fighter G Gundam will never see a modern release, right? Like they'll probably license it out and stuff, right? So you could stream it. But like because of even when you see Mobile Fighter G Mobile Fighter Mobile Fighter G Gundam, good God. I could not actually make it out of my mouth. When you actually see that, I mean, like, I remember Dynasty Warriors Gundam. You saw Master Gundam from Master Asia, Burning/God Gundam from Doman, right? Dark Gundam, which was, Dark Gundam from Kyoji, right? But, like, you don't necessarily see Zimbabwe or Tequila Gundam, right? So I wonder if that has to do with... I don't even want to necessarily say it's, like, critical drinker modern audiences moment, right? I think it has to do with, and I mean this in the best way, modern sensitivities and trying to cut down on stereotypes, I would assume. So Nintendo probably runs afoul of some of that logic if they wanted to do something like this. Because you definitely know that, even though I think a lot of us can take this in good faith, right? There is a section of people, just in general, right, who would definitely be upset about something like this. Especially for just blatant stereotypes and caricatures. I don't know. I think it's a hard... Oh, we got Tequila Gundam Build Fighters. Did we? I'm going to leave that point up to people who know about the franchise a little better than I do then. Because I feel like there's certain ones like Matador and Zimbabwe that probably wouldn't be brought back. And that's really the crux of my argument. If not, if it's one of those things where it's just like, yeah, they weren't popular designs, but they would do it in a heartbeat, that, hey, I'll eat that out 100%. My worry is Nintendo and caricatures. And that's why they probably haven't done a modern Punch-Out, or even, I don't even think they've done a remaster in terms of the Switch.
Got far too bushy a beard. In boxing, you need to either be clean-shaven or have well-groomed facial hair, and certainly no beards are allowed. Something like that acts as a cushion for the jaw. In between rounds, he's also chugging on maple syrup and taking naps. This covers two whole new infractions: the consumption of anything other than water while in the corner that you may associate with a certain someone else, and not taking the fight seriously. Not only is it disrespectful, but it's also a breaking of the rules.
Right.
However, let's get the big one out of the way. He's not fighting alone. Bear Hugger brings a squirrel with him into the ring for title defense. Let's ignore the animal cruelty because it's shown that the squirrel gave consent.
That's a statement.
It's shown that the squirrel gave consent.
I love that he points this out. Yeah, Bumbles McFumbles 2021. Wild.
And instead
statement.
focus on the rule of boxing that only the fighters and the ref can enter the ring. You can't do tag team boxing despite how cool that sounds. Bear Hugger overall commits 7 different rule breaks in the ring. Boy, I sure hope he isn't immediately shown up.
Oh no.
This one's just...
Yeah, this is why Nintendo won't make a modern version of this. Yeah, like that. right there. There's my argument.
Weird. Let's get the elephant out of the room for now and just deal with him later. First off is the obvious head covering. Can't do that. Also,
Sure.
He's wearing full pants rather than boxing trunks. It's blasé at this point. And also the last boxer in the game to break this rule, since from here on out we're all playing fair in the pants game. He also leaves the ring at points, which is incredibly illegal, which he can only do because of... No, let's just get it over with. Now, in the unified rules of boxing, there isn't anything exactly outlawing the use of magic, but at the same time, I feel like that's only because Evander Holyfield never tried a fucking cup and ball trick in the middle of a match. So he's obviously...
Bro's gotta hit him with the the table drops from the ceiling. It's got 3 shells and a ball in it. he does the thing where he points the fingers at his eyes and then to his opponent, right? The I see you. And then he does the shell game in the middle of the match. If your opponent loses the shell game, you get it straight to the face. Bro, I would spend money watching that. Full contact shell game is my jam.
Obviously cheating with the use of magic, but it's not that easy. Essentially, I need to make up a rule on the fly here. Do I penalize him under each different class of magic used? Do I penalize him once under the broad umbrella of magic usage in general? Are clones counted as outside influences despite the fact that they're the same guy? If the clones can't do damage to Lil Mac, are they a threat? Ultimately, it came down to this. I'm handing out an infraction for the teleportation, one for the floating, and I'll give him an infraction equal to the maximum amount of clones he uses in one fight, which is in his Mirage dance, where he uses a clone in the back and one to try to pincer you. So I'm giving him an overall 4 infractions for the usage of magic.
Okay.
That lands Tiger with 8 infractions when you add in the use of a flying carpet, which again, isn't covered in the rules, but I'm just pretty confident about it, call it a hunch. As a breath of fresh air, Don Flamenco only gets 2 infractions, with the first being for the toupee that he wears during matches. That's a head covering, and as unlikely a strike to the top of the head is, and no matter how little it covers, an infraction is still an infraction.
I mean, yeah, that would technically, that would count. That would definitely be an infraction.
However, his second one is for one that you might not have even seen coming. In his mid-match corner rests, he'll spritz himself with perfume. There are actually a few reasons that this is illegal. First off, the use of an aerosol can be used as an irritant for the other boxer,
right,
as the scent can disorient them. And the actual perfume applied can cause the gloves to slip off.
So here's the thing, is that to get to regulations like this, someone either had to think very hard about this, or there was precedent where it's the war crime. It's not a war crime the first time logic, right? Well, there's nothing saying I can't use perfume, even though it's going to be an irritant to my opponent, right? Just like, offensive to their olfactory senses, right? Psy codifies it into boxing regulations. No, you cannot use perfume. There, right there. Rules as written. Don't do it again.
But key amongst these facts is that in the corner, only an adrenaline solution, Avitine, and thrombin are allowed to be applied. Unless that thing is filled with liquid adrenaline, he can't have it. I'm also iffy on if this counts as magic, but I'm willing to let it slide as it's outside of the fight. Recreational magic is fine. But thankfully, it looks like the worst of the cheaters are behind us as we move on to the World Circuit. Who's next exactly? Oh, fuck that! Soda Popinski is next, and let's just get the obvious one out of the way to start off with. Just like Bear Hugger's syrup, you can't drink soda while in the corner. But he brings a whole new level of cheating by doing it in the middle of a match. Not only does this already fall under the previously explained rule, but he's also bringing foreign objects into the ring. Not to mention he's a sloppy drinker, and by getting soda onto his chest, he's applying an illegal substance to his body. I'm sure you know how sticky soda can be, so imagine trying to punch someone drenched in it. But now for the big one, as he's the only boxer that we know of that's doping. We see doctors making him special soda in a lab that lets him pull a truck with his teeth, and he's guzzling 18 bottles of this stuff in a match in his title defense intro. Doping is one of the most frowned upon things to do in sports, and to do it in front of a crowd at the expense of innocent Fanta is almost admirably bold. Bald Bull comes next, and with a head shaped like that, you
wild, honestly. Yeah, I mean, this is where the game goes into its campy nature, right? Because I said I've never actually played. Yeah, people in chat were pointing out that it's quote unquote soda, and that ends up being the censorship. I guess it was something else prior. But yeah, I mean, this leads into the campy nature of this, right? Like. See, I want to say that, but then I watched a piece in the past 6 months or so when I was playing RuneScape at like 3 a.m. about how, I think it was Simon Whistler. Yeah, I think Simon Whistler did a piece on substances in professional sports. And that was wild. So we joke about it, but like people kind of apparently do this. Like they kind of apparently just create new I don't know if compound's the right word. They create new substances that can fly under checks and evade existing regulations and stuff. To I don't know. To me, that I understand the reason, especially when money's on the line. Like, bro, I couldn't. I could never.
Imagine he's gotten a few broken rules under his belt. For starters, between rounds, he's shown applying hot towels to himself, which, given the rules of boxing, he can't do. You can only apply a cold towel to yourself if you want to use one. But maybe it could be a cold towel and he's just so hot from boxing that he's steaming? I'm willing to give him that one, but one I can't budge on is his rage issues. Bald Bull just sorta rampages and wins fights by accident rather than on purpose. As such, after winning the title in title defense mode, he's so blinded with rage that he attacks the ref, throwing him out of the ring. That doesn't just get you a penalty, that gets you banned for life.
Dude actually pulls the brute bomber from 14.
As well, when he's in the corner, he's shown lifting weights, something I'm not exactly sure on the legality of, leaning on the side of no, but when you get to the point that you start hucking them into the crowd, I feel like that's enough to get the ref to ask you to leave. Super Macho Man comes next, and with him he brings a ton of infractions. One of a kind too, so that's good for him, I guess. First off is the gold chain and earrings that he wears. Boxing rules dictate that you can't have any piercings, and you need to take them out before a fight starts. Speaking of attire, his trunks have personal branding on them, which is strictly forbidden. Along with that, in between rounds, he's taking questions from the press, which violates rules regarding press distance from the ring, allowing them only on specific sides of the ring from a certain distance.
I mean, think about it this way, right? Like, imagine just getting a punch right to your neck area, and then that means your gold chain or your neckwear is going to dig into your skin, right? Potentially cause rips, tears, etc. Earring, being able to take a blow to the side of the face. I mean, that's just going to rip that sucker right out. I don't know. Can you imagine something like gauges as well? I mean, I feel like that's a recipe for disaster. Like, these make sense.
On top of that, he's got a personal electronic with him in the camera that he's taking selfies with. Then there's the foreign object he brings into the ring when he puts sunglasses on to try to hit the Super Macho clothesline. Speaking of which, I think it's fair to say that there's a little bit of a chance that there's outside interference. The flash photography only gets bright when he goes for the clothesline, and him putting on the glasses acts as a signal to the audience members to start flashing their bulbs to mess with Little Mac.
Right.
And then, presumably thinking that was a little too subtle of a cheat, he just cold clocks the ref. However, this is also a time where there's a non-fighter that gets a rule penalty. As in title defense mode, the lighting manager would earn an infraction by discriminating against Macho Man and not shining the light on him. It doesn't matter if they're fighting, it's still a penalty that's boxing related. Finally is Mr. Sandman, the world champ, and there's a reason. This guy's entire strategy is sound, completely and utterly.
Is this Mike Tyson? Is this supposed to be modern Mike Tyson? Because I know it used to be Mike Tyson's Punch Out, and then I never remember what happened. Then something happened, and then that's why Punch Out for the Wii has a different name, right? So is this the equivalent?
Makes sense since this guy isn't a cartoon character like the rest. He's a boxer. The most you could levy against him is the fact that in title defense, there isn't a clear line of demarcation between his waistband and trunks. They're both black, so it could be difficult, but the different texture used and the fact that the stripes on the side of the trunks stop at the waist could be enough. Given the
I mean, yeah, at that point, it's a technicality. At that point, that a ruling gets issued.
fact that no one in the WBBA wants to tell him he can't wear his trunks like that, I'm gonna say it's less of a violation and more of a please go and change if that's okay, Mr. Champion, sir.
Yeah.
I was putting this one off because the highest amount of infractions thus far is Great Tiger with 8. This boxer has 19.
Let's go!
Aaron Ryan is the first boxer in the world circuit and was made to represent the typical dirty boxer.
Okay.
But they didn't have to go this far with it. Aaron Ryan may be a fellow countryman, but that doesn't mean I'm gonna let slip what he tries to pull. Starting off, it's safe to assume that for the whole game, boxers have been getting their gloves the standard way. In a professional boxing fight, boxers get their gloves provided by the venues. However, because Aaron Ryan's using loaded gloves, he's clearly bringing them from home. On top of that, we know that he wraps his fists properly, but yet again, that's something that he did at home and it wasn't inspected by the ref. Bringing these things from home and not having them inspected is 4 penalties already. And that's not to mention the little fact that he has loaded horseshoes in his boxing gloves.
Yeah.
He's planning on killing Little Mac at this pace. On top of that, he's shown throwing out the classic boxing cheats, trying to throw elbows and headbutts at Little Mac, as well as jumping off the ropes for that headbutt. Including that, he's also shown potentially trying to throw the fight by allowing Mac to get 3 hits in, literally asking him to hit him. No ref would allow that. But that's not it, as Aaron Ryan also attempts to attack Mac before the bell sounds between rounds, and in doing such, throws the ref away. That's one of the biggest no-nos in boxing, and it's just one of the nearly 24 infractions that Aaron Ryan accrues. Another thing to note is that there is a difference in the rules regarding intent to cheat and actually cheating. If you load your gloves, that's 1 strike. Actually throwing a punch is a different one entirely. However, this is all before his biggest infraction in title defense mode. Not only does he steal Mac's gloves from the minor circuit after breaking his old ones, he then goes on to fashion his old gloves into a flail! So obviously, bringing a weapon into the ring as well as using that weapon are illegal. But that's not even it. The glove he's using as a flail is old and ragged, and the rules state that if a glove is in such bad condition, it should be replaced by the venue. So even his cheating is cheating! Even more! When he gets knocked down, he'll attempt to throw one more swing with his weapon, and when a fighter is going down, they can't throw any more punches. The ref has already ruled them down and is waiting to deliver the 10 count. And finally, Ryan is also seen inciting and fighting with the crowds to the point that they start throwing stuff into the ring. It's almost admirable how much cheating he manages to sneak into a fight that probably won't take that long. It's not even close that Aaron is cheating twice as hard as the next two biggest cheaters combined. And they were bringing in squirrels, clones, and magic. Aaron Ryan did his cheating all on his own. This goes beyond being banned from competition. He's gonna be killed at this rate.
Yeah.
The WBBA is going to have a hell of a lot of paperwork to go through to clear up these infractions. And without these cheaters, the league would probably be like 3 people, and one of those people would be Glass Joe, and that's not much of a league. So please accept my proposal for a new little Mac design to line up with the rest of these flagrant rule breakers. So, as you,
He's gonna teach him a Smith & Wesson.
You can see here that, I gave him a gun.
What a great video. I absolutely love this. I mean, it's cool to see rulings from other, not necessarily games, right? But it's very cool to see other, just other things in general, right? Because I, give him a little Mac 10. It's one of those things where like, cause I have my biases. I have my things that I've experienced personally with like SCA and stuff, other organizations as well. And I'm used to more like the sword fighting, sparring kind of thing. Right. So it's really interesting to see how organized combat sports, kind of do it. It's really cool to see their, the way they do things, the way the regulations are, etc. It's really cool to see an insight into that. So thank you, everyone. I really do appreciate that. And thank you, the individual who recommended this via Patreon. I do appreciate that, honestly. I did see he had some Yu-Gi-Oh bits, also TF2. I will have to actually look those up at some point. Honestly, that sounds like it'd be a really fun time. But thank you all for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I will see you in the next one.